Welcome to Money in Motion by Trade the Chain. If you want more from CJ and Monte, subscribe to Trade the Chain and get access to the TTC community Discord, weekly futures reports, AI-driven cryptocurrency sentiment indicators, and other exclusive content. For a 14-day free trial, visit tradethechain.com or visit the link in the video description.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of Money in Motion. Some interesting price action today. A lot of different assets making weird moves. So excited to discuss that and much more. But hello, everyone. Good morning to all of you guys. Good morning, Jenna, Ross, and many others. Glad to have you guys on board as always. But yeah, Monte, good morning.
Good morning, my friend. Yeah, quite the volatile morning already. Let's dive right into things and start with traditional equities, because I think that kind of laying the groundwork there will help us understand Bitcoin. And I think also it really factors into my hypothesis for some of the crypto-related equities as well. But, you know, this was not too long ago looking very bleak. This, as you can see, we wicked down below 1,500, caused for concern, but also at the same time, it was a trigger for entry for a lot of short players, I believe. And now you're seeing the market, being the discounting mechanism it is, shaking out any late shorts to the party. So anyone that tried to short this morning after the market opened down, I think is going to be trapped and is going to get squeezed out. If we let's switch to a more interim time frame here, just to see how drastic of a shift this is. But you can see here, there's still significant upside potential based on the fact that we gapped down. People got very bearish at the low and are since getting squeezed out. So I think the NASDAQ goes back up. I think we've seen the lows for the day. I think it climbs back to the previous close of yesterday. And then from there, we could plausibly grind higher. I'm not saying we break above 15.2 or anything like that, but I do think we've seen the lows for the day in the NASDAQ. And part of that has to do with my analysis of the DXY. This was looking like it was going to turn up and head back towards the highs. Not anymore. Now we're seeing a much more bearish to neutral candle here, and that tells me that equities have room to run. And now you might be wondering, okay, now what should I be buying? That's great. That's great. What should I be looking at? I would be looking at the crypto related equities, because they were resilient even though the market opened down. These assets were still up. Coinbase, Marathon Digital, MicroStrategy, all of them were showing signs of resilience early on this morning. And now that the market's flipping green, I think that's going to really kind of ignite even more of a fire underneath these crypto-related equities. CJ, I know you've been trading in and out of coin, and I know that's what you want to hear. What do you think about Coinbase and the price action that it's showing today?
Yeah, I mean, this one's been a tough hold, just not really doing anything over the past couple months. You say trading in and out, just to be like very specific. I don't really trade in and out of this. I guess I've scaled into it more over the past couple months, and I want to buy and accumulate it. I've said oftentimes that if the cryptocurrency market and S&P 500, if equities don't pick up and kind of make a new all-time high by perhaps February, or it's mainly just crypto. If crypto is not able to pick up by February and this ETF narrative is not enough to get us going, and the halving kind of doesn't really come to fruition in terms of like narrative formation and capital allocation, then I will have been wrong about, this secular trend thesis and looking for high beta assets with growth around Bitcoin, such as Coinbase. But as of now, I mean, it seems to have put in a bottom here temporarily at around 70 to 75. I think it's a pretty good range to dollar cost average if you're looking ahead into 2024, 2025, like I am. But ultimately, I've said it before, if I'm holding this thing into 2024 or 2025, and I have a very large, significant portion of my net worth in this particular position, it cannot be liquidated. Even, if you run into a remote event risk where something like COVID or, God forbid, anything you could imagine that could be horrible to impact markets could happen. We've seen times where markets have been down 50% across the board in terms of crypto assets, altcoins, Bitcoin, things of that. So like, we've lived in a world where that is possible. So you have to understand that risk when allocating a large amount of capital to a high beta crypto asset if you're trying to catch the secular trend. I know that has nothing to do with what you asked me. What you asked me was, what do you think of setup today? It looks good. People are bidding it.
Yeah, it does.
So it looks fine. It looks fine.
Okay. I love how you could have just answered the question first and then gone on the diatribe, but you chose to go on the diatribe first and then answer the question. That's just the CJ Reichel methodology of answering a question. But no, good stuff. And I too am a holder of Coinbase. And honestly, I like the idea of buying it today. A lot of people mega bearish on equities in general. And I like to take the contrarian perspective, and I do think that Bitcoin narrative, that Bitcoin ETF narrative, will come into play here soon, and we can see Bitcoin climb at least to 30K. That would be tremendous news for Coinbase, for Mara, for Riot, for MicroStrategy. I think all of them would benefit, tremendously. That in conjunction with an equity market that's moving in the right direction, I think, obviously spells great news for Coinbase. So, I'm bullish Coinbase. I actually don't think today is a horrible day to be buying it. To be perfectly honest, if we take a look at the chart here, you have defined risk, like CJ said, at the $75 level, kind of where we dipped down to today, or where we kind of opened the day. I would say that's where I'd set my stops. And then, to the upside, the breakout level is pretty obvious. Breaking out above $85, you could just wait and buy the breakout, because I think if we break above $85, we may see some resistance around 90. I think from there would be a nice clean move to the 110 range. So, we need the stars to align, but I think we're starting to get that, right? With crypto looking the way it is, Bitcoin slowly grinding up. It obviously made that big move yesterday, but now I think it's going to slowly grind up and reach and just go back up to the top of that candle, retrace back up to 30K. And that would be very good for the crypto related equities, especially on, days where the NASDAQ and the Qs are green.
Yeah. Dow almost red to green now on the day, actually kind of dropping as I say that. But look, listen to what the market's telling you. Bitcoin's down, the NASDAQ's down over 1%, or it was to start the day.
Yeah, it was down.
And all the, altcoins are down, but all the crypto equities that have a relation to this ETF are green.
Yep.
The market's telling you something. It's the wisdom of crowds here. I don't know if it's going to happen, but it's definitely foreshadowing something. I don't know. I don't want to get too far into the realm of pontification. Let's see the chain.
No, I think it's okay to speculate when you're doing it, in the context of, checking off the boxes of things you want to see for an asset to pump. And with Coinbase, I think, you're right. It is, just if you look at if we're playing a game of Clue, right? And you have all these little pieces of information in front of you. Equity markets down this morning while Coinbase is up. Bitcoin, grinding higher. Those are two clues that I would pick up and say, okay, I'd want to be buying Coinbase here. And that just seems like, a good play to me. So yeah, but anyways, let's move on. I know you wanted to talk precious metals. Anything you'd like to start off with in that realm?
Yes. So yesterday we talked briefly about like chain reactions and things that could play catch up to gold, or at
Mhm.
least had somewhat similar positioning to gold. So I want to show platinum very quickly. And I think we did talk about this on Monday when looking at assets with crowded COT. Yeah, we talked about the move, that
Yeah.
we saw earlier in August. But just to sum it up very quickly, you got levels that are very crowded, similar to gold and what we've seen. This is something that could be useful in industry. I think you could argue that, you see things like the Russell as well as the Dow, maybe you get to start rallying with like, you know, metals or things that are useful within industry. I mean, who knows? That's all speculation. Really, the only thing that this trade comes down to is the fact that there's a lot of shorts and we're starting to move off the lows after a pretty long downtrend. If those shorts are trapped, they have to buy, and we're probably going to get another move up to maybe like 930 or 950 here, which would be really interesting. But just like I said, observing, looking for characteristics of things that have really moved. Gold's still getting bid too, so like I assume gold has squeezed out some of those shorts when looking at the initial positioning, but I don't think platinum really has, and that's really starting to move today. And that was when I was talking about buying, like, over the weekend or just looking at it because it had that optimal setup, and now you're seeing it like actually come to fruition. And there's pretty good defined risk right at the lows there. I would argue the same thing with like Dow or Swiss franc. Like if the lows are in for today, that's not a bad spot to re-enter and then just set the stop at the lows. Like you'd risk very low amounts and you get all the upside of any potential continuation.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think that's a bad idea at all. In fact, I may actually add to my positions a little bit here on the back of that. But, obviously hindsight's 2020, but last week we talked about it. Your man came out and said, "I'm buying Bitcoin, buying gold here," and he's been spot on. And it does kind of remind me very much of 2020 when some of the bigger players in this game, like PTJ and like Stanley Druckenmiller, started to buy Bitcoin, right, in anticipation of price going up. It does feel somewhat similar to that period of time when we have people like Paul Tudor Jones saying, or coming out and saying, now's a good time to buy gold, to buy Bitcoin, and they've been spot on.
Yeah, as much as respect I have for them, you always got to be. I mean, yeah, it is important. Personally, what I think was way more impactful, and maybe should have been the title of today's show, was Larry Fink shilling Bitcoin as a safe haven asset. I never thought I'd see that.
I
But
know
that
those
type
words
of
together.
narrative. That type of narrative is exactly what this market needs, and what the crypto equities need, and exactly what the altcoins don't need. Because this is a Bitcoin centric narrative in certain regards. Not saying
100%.
a high risk, if Bitcoin goes up 20%, altcoins will probably do well in the following days, but there's probably going to be that lag. I don't know. I'm thinking about the flow of capital and just where it's going to come from. But that whole idea of Bitcoin becoming a safe haven, and if institutions actually buy into that and you see the flows start coming similar to gold, that's a beautiful thing. So, and
Yeah.
it looks like the equity, like that's what the Bitcoin equities are trading like right now. Like they're trading like something's kind of, anyways.
Yeah, they are trading like there's news on the horizon. It does very much give that impression. That being said, the S&P is almost flipping green on the day. It's only down 0.2%. NASDAQ down 0.6%, where at one point today we were down almost 1.7%. So, things flipping on the day.
It's always a shit show this morning.
Yeah,
It's
it's always
flips around, but it is a good sign. Yeah.
I think the one most important piece of info that you can glean from this morning was the fact that the crypto related equities showed that resilience. I think that's indicative of something more to come in terms of positive price action when we see Bitcoin grind higher. So, and last thing I will say is that, people, you mentioned it briefly, but you talked about like flow of capital. I think one thing that's going to be very evident in this next cycle is Bitcoin goes first, and then we see ETH go, and then the alts go. So I think it's going to be it's going to be very much like a downhill, or Bitcoin will be the tide that raises all ships, I think. Um, and I think we'll see some of that capital from Bitcoin flow downstream into things like ETH, into things like, and then into the altcoins. But first, I think Bitcoin is going to be the leader. So, we talked about ETH BTC. I don't even think that's really something that I'd put on as a long trade anymore, because I do think Bitcoin has the potential to outperform ETH just on the basis of this whole ETF narrative. So,
Yeah, I think I think most people who have been experienced throughout a couple cycles understand the flow of capital model between Bitcoin to altcoins. But what do you think that means for Bitcoin centric equities? Do you think that they
I think
are
that
like,
means
do you think they outperform from the get go? I think they just act as high beta to Bitcoin no matter what. Like those are the altcoins
yeah,
for
no,
now.
I think you're right. I think you're right. And I think that they kind of fall outside of like the realm of that flow of capital model, but are like running parallel to Bitcoin, in the sense that while we see Bitcoin pump, those things are going to pump even harder, I would imagine. So like they're going to show high beta immediately. It's not going to be like with the altcoins where we see, Bitcoin cool off and then the altcoins pump. I expect the crypto related equities to pump alongside Bitcoin and show that high beta relationship immediately, rather than kind of playing a game of catch up like we typically see in a flow of capital model. So yeah, I do agree that, they are basically the altcoins of this market cycle.
So you just own Coinbase, like that's it, or maybe a basket of. To me, that just seems like the best and
Yep.
most obvious
Yeah,
case
Bitcoin
in
and
a
Coinbase.
risk adjusted return basis. That seems like the best way to allocate capital
Yeah. And
right
also when
now.
it just like we're getting and pontificating, but like, the ETF approval would be big news. There's not a whole lot of players left in this space, right? And if people want exposure beyond the ETF, they're going to start looking at things like Coinbase. Like people haven't been looking at Coinbase as closely, as they have when Bitcoin, was pumping, and when Coinbase was first, listed. But now that it's had some time to, marinate in the markets, and people have had some time to trade it, I think when Bitcoin goes up here, um, on the back of that ETF approval, we really see some high beta price action and some speculation into things like Coinbase, and I don't want to leave out the miners as well. Riot and Mara, I think, have the potential to perform tremendously well on the back of positive news around Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's the one thing I'll probably. There's definitely a risk of me underperforming the miners, but I don't really care. I just don't understand the levels of dilution within Mara that like cause it to go down so much. It just like scares me. Like I don't want to really. Maybe we trade some options, towards the
Yeah,
end around them, but I don't need to. The mining business is a tough one. I sound like Warren Buffett. It's a tough business there.
it is
You
though.
know, the only way you make money is if these bitcoins go up. All right.
That's some great advice there, Warren.
Back to green on the day.
Nice. That
So
looks good to me. And the dollar is obviously now right on the day. Um, so don't be surprised to see risk assets start to run a little bit here, because the DXY is looking like it may pull back. So I think we could see pairs within the DXY, within that basket, like the Swiss franc, really start to run.
Yeah, just within the last 15 minutes, really, you basically usurped all of those losses at the open. So close to making new highs here and breakout levels. So, not much to say there. Last thing I'll say is just highlighting the fact that long duration treasuries are again at their lows. And I think if you were to say, is there one trade that you could put on that you can't touch for 6 months? If there was one trade that I would put on, it would just be short long duration treasuries, because every single it's quite astonishing to me, honestly. I mean, maybe I shouldn't be, but you have all of these like very highly intelligent and well-educated fund managers that think that their models have to conform to the market just because rates are currently high, so then they must go down. But I have there's no reason to believe that rates automatically have to go down now. Anyways, let me get to the other point, which is more important, which is we've seen record levels of fund managers buying into things like EDV and TLT over the last month. The only other time we've paralleled record inflows like that was when when funds bought into the S&P at the highs in 2021, and that was the top. Now, I get that we're at the lows and, it's kind of oversold and there could be a mean reversion bounce here, but this is every fund manager on Wall Street is like, oh, let's put it in long duration because rates have to go down. It can't be that. The market cannot be that easy.
Yeah, no.
And I'm just, I don't know, I'm kind of maliciously enjoying watching that chart go down. I have no position in it or financial stake whatsoever, but it's just like that hive mind of, oh, well, my model is correct, so therefore the market has to do what my MBA, taught me or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyways,
that does very much feel like kind of the sort of middle of the bell curve trade in terms of if nothing's that easy, like you said, money's never made that easily in the market. But it seems like fund managers believe that strongly in long duration funds. So I don't know. I think that you're right in the long term. We see things like Vanguard, and I think even things like the TNX, which is up today. I think we see them pull back over the next 3 to 6 months here, but that's like a longer term trade I would take, because like you said, there could be some interim bouncing around.
Yeah, I don't know. Just kind of funny crowded trade to watch. But
yeah, it is.
That's all for me today, folks. But anything you have to top off the show with? Anything else you'd like to cover?
No, that's pretty much all I got. I think we hit all our positions. Just want to say thank you to everyone for watching. Thank you, USC Now. Thank you, Jenna. Thank you, Ross. Thank you, everyone else. You guys are great. We love the participation. Really makes these shows a lot of fun to do. And also, don't forget to check out tradethechain.com. But CJ, I'll pass it to you for the outro. See you guys tomorrow.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Take care.
Welcome to Money in Motion. Thank you for watching Money in Motion. If you want more from Monte and CJ, subscribe to Trade the Chain and get access to the TTC community Discord, weekly futures reports, AI-driven cryptocurrency sentiment indicators, and other exclusive content. For a 14-day free trial, visit tradethechain.com or visit the link in the video description. Thank you, everyone.